Animal versus human behavior. In other videos, I have described the design of reincarnation where the human experiences the soul transitioning from animal to angel. The design to reincarnate souls from animals to human beings is logical so animals can learn about selfish needs first, then learn empathy and objectivity as human beings, and then to balance these needs against the rest of the universe as angels. Animals learn about selfishness in the wild away from human civilizations, which can include the use of physical force that can injure or kill themselves and or others. Hence, selfishness was designed to be explored by animals in the wild. And becoming an immortal angel requires logical goodness, so your eternal immortality will be heavenly instead of hellish, so your character flaws won't cause problems forever and ever among angels. As such, the human experience is about transitioning from solving problems with physical force like animals toward using the mind and fair and equal goodness like an angel, and this video explores what this transition looks like. By design, souls reincarnate through a series of animal lives to prepare souls for the human experience, and by the time a soul reincarnates as a human being, that person's unique personality has been shaped by the preceding chain of animal lives. This means there are many default animal tendencies for newer human beings, especially because of how many more human births there are per year compared to human deaths, meaning many animal souls are becoming human beings as a result. With limited practice as human beings, these newer human beings will lack advanced concepts like ethics, impulse control, empathy, etc., and will tend to be self-centered and emotional because of their shallow habits that are similar to animal behavior. To understand this, picture how animals live their lives. For example, what prevents an animal from stealing from another animal? Nothing but the fear of getting caught and getting in a fight as a result, or the fear of trouble. And the ethics of animals is a product of fear of getting caught, getting in fights, and potentially suffering as a result. And among human beings, there are people who avoid evil deeds and crimes out of fear of getting caught rather than philosophical reasons. In the wild, animals will picture what they want to do and decide to do it or not, without education, ethics, philosophy, law enforcement, or other human concepts to help them decide. Instead, animals will imagine things in their mind and physically execute those desires, and when there are consequences, including getting caught stealing, their response tends to be fight or flight. Meaning animals won't have concepts like fault and redemption. When an animal gets caught stealing, then that animal will examine the other animal to gauge size and strength to decide to fight or flee, such as based on whether the fight can be won. Among human beings, this is the equivalent of a human being stealing and responding selfishly after getting caught, such as by attempting to run away or attempting to attack witnesses or the police, etc. Meaning an animalistic person wouldn't have mental concepts of responsibility and righting the wrong. Instead, decisions tend to be based on potential trouble to oneself and how to escape that potential. Thus result, some human beings will get angry instead of apologizing when they are at fault, because they still retain their animalistic personality. Another way to understand this is to picture the taming of pets, where you can gain their trust by giving them food, therefore getting what they want is goodness to them, or animals will bark, hiss, attack you, etc. when upset by you. Meaning to animals, what is good or bad is judged selfishly relative to their perception and needs, such as what failing to mentally connect the consequences to their past actions, cause and effect, fault, ethics, etc. Through reincarnating from life to life, scenario after scenario, the purpose of life is to train reflexes, and by default animalistic reflexes tend to be fight or flight based on the selfish point of view. Thus result, if you accuse a person of causing a problem, then a more animalistic person will likely respond with a no reflex, and would typically get angry, make excuses, lie, or do whatever by reflex to escape from trouble. Meaning when faced with trouble, the animalistic reflex is aimed at fighting or fleeing from that trouble, so that subsequent actions will serve that aim, including telling lie after lie, because human beings tend to use words instead of running away or fighting. This will also explain situations where a parent is told your child has passed away and get a no reflex from that parent, as if trying to flee from reality at that moment. Especially in criminal justice, when faced with real trouble, there is a lot of lying involved, hence making forensic evidence so important to modern justice. Especially because there are so many humans being born on planet Earth, therefore rushing the speed of reincarnation to draw many animalistic souls into human bodies, hence why there will be so much crime in the modern world as a result. Meaning there are many people willing to take responsibility, face the consequences, and show a desire to right the wrong in redemption, because a true sense of ethics and fairness takes multiple mental steps to develop. For example, as a first step, a person can learn to stay calm, like instead of running away, flight, or getting angry, fight. The person might learn to count to 10 and remain calm as a result. With some practice, then this person can stay calm in future situations while facing trouble, and by staying calm, this person can suppress emotions in order to think. And this will be the start of the transition from emotions to rationality, from animalistic behavior toward human behavior and toward angelic behavior as well. After mastering the ability to stay calm, what would this person think about? If this person can think about how other people feel, then empathy can develop. And from empathy, true ethics can develop, such as where someone would choose to not steal out of realization how other people will feel and recognizing stealing as objectively wrong, contrasted to not stealing in fear of getting caught in trouble. In contrast, an animalistic person who refrains from stealing because of fear of getting caught might steal when they feel they can get away with it, versus a person who understands stealing is morally wrong would choose to not steal based on understanding. Otherwise, why should any animal not steal if there is a direct benefit to oneself from stealing? Meaning, why should any animal care about right and wrong? There are other things you can discover after learning to stay calm and think, like scientific modeling, for example, where you will form a mental model and will search for proof to support or disprove your mental model. An animalistic person will assume things and go through life in trial and error, such as fleeing or fighting their way out of errors. And it takes mental evolutions to learn science and objectivity, such as so you would develop mental models of logical good and evil and judge yourself against them, such as to understand why good is good. To then be able to figure out and predict the future based on rational thought, to be able to plan and control your destiny as a result, and it is important for all souls to be able to plan and determine their own fate through free will. Therefore, understanding why logical goodness is good and be able to use thought to plan and implement ideas from your understanding to produce logical goodness as a result, therefore behaving like a proper angel. In other videos, I have described logical goodness as where souls exist and have to exist, and the fact you need other people to be happy, therefore achieving peace and harmony will logically ensure the most number of people coexisting happily together. Thinking about a higher purpose to life seems key for people to viewing themselves as one person out of many, to then judge themselves as good or bad people among the many, such as while trying to figure out how to coexist happily with other people. As such, reincarnation will exist so souls can evolve these reflexes life after life, because it takes time before a soul discovers something different that leads to a behavioral change, and then more time to practice a new way before discovering the next mental evolution. Such as taking lifetime to lifetime before an animalistic soul evolves from basic fight or flight responses to complex human ethics of empathy, objectivity, and redemption, to learning logical goodness, to becoming an angel. Otherwise, imagine what heaven would be like sharing it with animalistic angels who would get angry, fight when they cause accidents, or would try to run or flat their way out of responsibility. This wouldn't be heavenly and would become hellish against eternal time. As such, as explained in other videos, souls will keep reincarnating until they can demonstrate enough logical goodness that is conducive to immortality, for your sake and the sake of other angels, to ensure heaven remains heavenly for all immortals. Hence why reincarnation will exist, so souls can keep trying from life to life, where bodies might die but the internal reflexes stay with souls across lives, until a soul is ready to become an angel to finally escape reincarnation by becoming immortal. And since all souls start from somewhere, such as from a simple algae, to then reincarnate through various animals before becoming human beings, we all will need to learn to mentally transition from animal behavior to human behavior and then angelic behavior. Thus, know how minds evolve in complexity by learning lessons from life and binding them together like layers on top of layers to achieve logical goodness as a result, with huge amounts of practice and time required for souls to evolve. Hopefully, people can see the big picture and gain a sense of direction to life from this description of animal versus human behavior. Thanks for watching.